Hey guys, what is going on? It's your man Nathan, and I want to welcome you to another episode of No Label Live, where we talk to inspiring and motivating people about what it means to take your adversity and turn it into your advantage. So today we have my friend Luke coming on the show, and Luke, you'll probably recognize his voice because he interviewed me on Motivational Mentors, his podcast with Arsenio back in the day. And so Luke is an entrepreneur, a podcaster, and the founder of Grow Together. Is that correct?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I found it great together. Two podcasts. So Motivational Mentors, where we had a great conversation with you, and you dropped the fire bombs and value bombs. So I'm hoping to do hopefully, the same today.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I have no doubt that that will happen. So as we were talking about what we were going to bring to today's episode, you mentioned a couple things and I mentioned a couple things. So first, I want to get started by this. If you were sitting there and you were writing your story as a book, what's been the point where you were facing the most adversity during your story?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think looking back, it was probably the time where I was facing like anxiety, depression, and everything, and I was working out or trying to work out like who I was as a person. Going through that self-discovery process, because at that time, I've never been your quote-unquote traditional young person. With alcohol, drinking, clubbing, all those sorts of things, and yet the people that I grew up with were doing those sorts of things, right? So there was quite a lot of I suppose in some respects labels, like that I actually put on myself, like, am I normal? If all my other friends and social circle is doing this and I'm not, like, what's the matter with me type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that time definitely. And I suppose also when I hated what I was doing 9 to 5 wise, I mean, it was all around the same period in time, which is probably where, the overwhelm came from, that then hit onto the anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. But yeah, so I would probably say that time, man.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit more, because you're not a old dude, man. You're what, only 23?
23, yeah, absolutely. So so people always think I'm actually younger than I am, but no, I'm 2023. Yeah.
So how old were you when all this stuff was going on, when you were questioning, am
Mm,
I normal? I
mm,
really don't like what I'm doing. How old
mm.
were you then?
So I was between, I think, so it went on for a few years actually, and it was getting into just those patterns and those cycles of just doing the same thing, like going to 9 to 5, hating what I was doing, coming home, trying to fit in with the people around me, and then, the next day, and it was the same. So it went on for a few years. I think I was, well, when it was really bad, between 19 and 21. So yeah, it's only probably been the last 18 months or so that like the personal growth is, like, shot through the roof type of thing. I focused on the entrepreneurship, and focused on the personal growth and the mindset, and really started to overcome all of that, really. So yeah, I was, probably between approaching my 19th birthday and about 21, I think.
Okay, man. So uh, there's a good gap now from 21 to 23, and you said you've seen amazing growth. Um, what kind of made that first step in that growth for you? What was that thing that was the first step?
Great question, man. I think it was probably actually when I was really passionate about what I was doing, and I was explaining some of, like, my business to my friends and the people that I was hanging around with at the time, and they laughed at me. And then I think in that moment, it wasn't until I think a few months later, maybe even towards like 6 months and a year, that I started to actually like change that. But I always would go back to that moment, because I think that was one of the moments that was like the catalyst for auditing my circle, right? For realizing that actually maybe I do need to hang around with new people because we're on different life paths, which is completely fine, and I think that was a little bit hard for me to accept, but it happened. And yeah, and I hopefully, and I have learned from that. So I think that was probably one of the moments within like my friendship group, social circle, and that helped, like you say, was that catalyst really. So yeah, I think overall in my journey, like I knew when I left college in the second year when I was 17 that I wanted to build my own business. I then went into a business apprenticeship, which then became that 9 to 5 that I hated. And so when I was doing that, there was another defining moment when I realized actually I'm not building a business, even though that's what I set out to do. So yeah, I've definitely had like these defining moments along the way. And I think we all have that. I think we all have those defining moments along the way, or those eureka moments, or those aha moments where we start to realize things. And I think they are really, really key.
So you were doing this apprenticeship. So what was the apprenticeship in?
So I think the company, so the actual apprenticeship was like business and admin or something, or, like business management or something. And I actually became that admin guy, which is why I hated it so much, because I thought that I was going to go there and learn all these amazing things about business. And I just literally went in the office, like filing, kind of up there type of thing. I was like, oh, wow. And yeah, I just believe that I had a little bit more of a bigger purpose, right, than being stuck behind my desk. So, but the actual company, I think they done something with what was it? I can't. They basically sold metal components to clean car machines or something boring like that. But yeah, so it wasn't even like any actual interest what the company done. And I think that if maybe it was something like sport or something, or like soccer or football or something like that, then maybe I would have enjoyed it a little bit more, because that's another one of my passions. But it wasn't, and I done it because I wanted to learn the business side of things and that. But yeah, that just didn't really happen. So yeah.
So let me challenge you with this a little bit. So even though you became the admin guy and it wasn't what you thought it was going to be, what's the number one lesson you learned from that experience?
Yeah, great question. I think when I start to get to the point when I have employees, I've learned that I want to create an environment for those employees to learn and to grow, and to actually, in the first place, hire people as part of my team that have a passion for what they do. Not just hiring people because a job needs filling. Hiring people because they may love marketing or they love sales. And I think that's where and that would take longer time. Completely, I completely understand that. But I think it's really important that actually to have the teams that love what they do for their craft. So I probably learned that from it now, from like a business standpoint, on what I would do differently when I get to that point where, I start to build my own team and everything. And maybe a little bit like how not to run a business. But yeah, so, or like how I would run a business differently. I think that's maybe a bit more fair to say, how I would run a business more differently, to create that workspace and create those environments where, your teams can be open and honest and just express their true selves. I think that's probably what I've learned, and how I'm taking that experience into my own business. I've also learned things through that process about myself, through that self-discovery process of what I like and, what I don't like, and like my life values and everything like that. But applying that experience to like my own business, I think it would have to be about when I am at that point of creating teams and that. hiring the right people who do love what they do.
Yeah, and I think there's a valuable lesson for anybody who's watching or listening, and that is the fact that you can find those things, whether it's what you don't want to do when you're running your own thing, through the experience of that 9 to 5 or whatever that experience is for you in the moment, to look at it and say, what can I learn from this? Because I know I'm not going to be here forever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely, man.
Man, I think that's a super powerful story. So how did you go from that to like entering your personal development, self-development story and creating what you've got going on today?
Yeah. So, so yeah, in 2015, I realized actually like, the only way, or one of the only ways you're going to build this business is by learning kind of like on the job type of thing. So yeah, I jumped into it. And my first business, I wanted it to be or I was building a clothing brand because, I wanted to own my own brand and my own clothing brand. That failed ultimately, but then I got into like network marketing, affiliate marketing, these types of business models. And then that led me to personal growth, personal development. And I was still doing that for a while, but I just felt this shift, this pull more towards the personal development. And then that's where Grow Together was born, really. I also realized that I wasn't the only young person who had questions and about careers and all those sorts of things, and wasn't the only young person who was stuck. So yeah, again, that's where Grow Together was born. And the first few months I ran like a beta period to see if it would work and everything. And then 2018, beginning of 2018, we launched fully. And beginning of this year we launched the Grow Together Academy, which is our e-learning platform. So it's been good. It's been good. And and that's pretty much how I got started, really.
And for anybody who doesn't really know what that's all about, from what I saw, you're really targeting people who are 16 to 24 in that age range for the academy. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So I think originally, I really wanted it to be for, young people, so 16 to 24, 25. We have had a more of an interest from, I would say like 18 to a bit older. Which is fine. I think the direction we're taking more now is people who believe that there's more to life than meets the eye, like they have a bigger purpose, but they don't know what that is, and so they lack that direction. So we can help them with that, really. I think the age is still definitely like there in my demographic in that, because I can relate to people who are younger, 18, 24, 25, a little bit more,
Yeah.
and help them to unlock their true potential and become the leaders that, they want to be. And and all that good stuff. So that's definitely still there for sure.
What do you think, and maybe from all the people that you've helped through it already, what's the number one thing that comes up for almost everybody who joins?
Yeah, great question. I think, like I mentioned there, that lack of direction is something I see quite often. And people who, especially nowadays, don't want to fit into the 9 to 5 system and way of doing things. And maybe, their parents or their friends or whoever are questioning their decision for not going down that route. And so that can cause a lot of different things, a lot of conflicts, in relationships and families and that, as well. So yeah, I think that lack of direction, knowing, what action steps to take, but even just like people trying to like find who they are, like what their life values, their core beliefs, why are they feeling the way that they're feeling, what are the mental blocks that they are experiencing, like these sorts of things, which sometimes can take that deep inner work. which maybe not everyone wants to do, because they could be scared what they might find, but it's so important that they do. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, man. That's some of the things that we're noticing. Definitely.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head with not everybody wants to do the deep work, because
Yeah.
a lot of times we know that stuff's down there and it
Yeah.
got buried down there for a reason, in all honesty.
Right.
So
Yeah. 100%.
that can be difficult for anybody to challenge. Um, and you mentioned in that question about the importance of relationships, whether it's with your family or maybe business partners or significant others. So um, what importance has relationship played in your own life, and then in what you're growing as a business owner?
So yeah, the importance of relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, relationships are so important, because we have relationships with everyone, it's just the dynamic of those relationships. Um, and so how we're building Grow Together for me is about creating those relationships with people, not just trying to make a quick buck and, just quickly trying to sell people stuff, really getting to know them and listen and see what their pains and their challenges are, um, and that may be over, messenger platforms, or that may be, jumping on calls. I had 2 calls tonight. So, it's all about developing those relationships within Grow Together to create a meaningful community, really. And I think in terms of my own personal relationships, I think that was the second part of the question. Yeah, I mean, definitely had challenges before, like I was saying, with my own social circle and group and that. I think now connecting with amazing like-minded people like yourself, like Arsenio, my co-host on my podcast, I mean, we've connected with quite a lot of similar people, right? I seen the other day you interviewed Ryan Hartley, who actually lives about an hour away from me, so yeah, definitely a lot of people who now are in my circle, and I've connected with mostly online, but definitely similar minded, and we help each other to grow and are there to support each other, so yeah, man, hopefully that answers your question.
So if I'm a young person and I'm watching and listening to this, and I feel a pull to kind of do that same thing, like I'm looking at my current social circle and I'm realizing that it's not necessarily the circle that's gonna move me forward, and I've got people who are on different paths than me. What's one step that person could take to start to create a new social circle?
Great question. I think there's a lot of steps that people can take. I think people, it's a great question, because if I'm honest, I'm not sure what to take it. Like, people can start to go onto the app like Meetup and see if there's local events or networking events or people or things in their communities and locally to where they are, or in their nearest town or city, where they can meet more like-minded people who have similar interests to you. So that could be a good first step. I think also people a little bit before that have to go through a little bit of that self-discovery process, and well, what do you want in a friendship? What are you looking for? And I think that kind of comes back to their life values, and a part of who they are, and that really, and their own vibe and their own energy. So yeah, but I think a more of an actionable step that people can take is probably, downloading the Meetup app or downloading a similar app and starting to connect with like-minded people like that, going to events and everything. But I think don't discard that, again, that inner deeper work of, okay, so what are my life values? What am I looking for in friendships and relationships and the people that I want to, connect with and spend my time with? I think that's very, very important. and it's part of like a bigger process, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, although you can sit down and really think about it and connect with your inner self and that, and I highly recommend you do so. I think what I found is that it's a process over time that you also develop the answers to and start to realize as you grow. And so like maybe more of a actionable step is to download Meetup or a similar app and start to find things on there you're interested in, so like business events, maybe some sports stuff or whatever it is, or whatever you're interested and passionate about, and go to those events. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would go and I would say challenge you if you're watching and listening. I think Luke hit it on the head that it really starts with that inner work first.
Mm,
So if you're realizing you're not where you want to be, first you got to figure out where you want to go
mm,
to change that direction. So I think that's super powerful if you just spend, I don't know, start with like 5 minutes
mm,
and write down, like you said, I like the idea of what do I want in a friend? What do I want my relationships to look like? Where do I want to end up? Asking yourself those questions and actually sitting with it is super powerful.
100%, man, 100%. And yeah, for me, it's all part of like the bigger self-discovery process, like I've touched on, and I'm actually starting to talk a lot about more. I've done a few podcasts over the few couple of days and weeks and that, and that's definitely something that's coming up. So yeah, for me, it's all part of like the bigger self-discovery process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because we are who we spend 100% of our time with. So
Exactly, man.
we better know who we are. Um, oh, man. So it's so crazy how time flies when you do these things. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Um, since you have 2 podcasts, what kind of insight have you gotten from the individuals that you've interviewed on your podcast about I don't know, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's relationships, whatever you think the key thing is, what shows up for almost everybody that you talk to?
Yeah, man. Well, so what I would say about podcasting is I've learned so much from all of our guests. You know, when you came on, I learned so much from you, and that mindset that you have when, you know, yeah, when all of our guests come on. You know, I'm there with my pen and my pad, and I'm writing things down, and that, you know. So yeah, I definitely learned so much from all of our guests, and I probably couldn't say like a biggest thing that I've learned on there, because like it's all equal. You know, it's all either help me or my co-host Arsenio in a way to help us move forward. Um, I would probably say like what everything has in common is our guests' kind of mindset, and that mindset of, you know, of growth, of moving forward, of also not of also not not complaining. You know, like they realize that they have the power to change their life, and it lies with them. You know, I think I actually spoke to someone about this on a call earlier, that a lot of people like in day-to-day life, you know, just complain, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that what everyone has in common that I've kind of spoke to and interviewed is that they realize that they are the creator of their own destiny, so to speak, you know, and they can take their life in any direction that they want to go. Um, and yeah, you know, they're mostly all entrepreneurs or in the entrepreneurial space or moving in that space. And so maybe that's a massive reason to do with it. I don't know, but yeah, man, hopefully that answers your question. I couldn't probably say like one defining thing, because I've learned so much from everyone.
Well, I,
So
I think that's a powerful insight about the idea of not complaining, because I had a guest last week that talked about the same thing. He had someone come into his life and say, your attitude sucks.
mm,
And it was that idea of, well, it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. And taking that ownership for yourself is a huge step
mm,
in the direction of being more intentional with what you're creating with your life for sure.
Definitely.
Is there anything that you would like to talk about that we haven't touched on up until this point?
Oh man, I could go on for ages talking about loads of things. No, I suppose I suppose I don't know. It's a difficult one, man.
Well, okay. What's got you the most excited as you get ready to move into the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I think the work we're doing at Grow Together with the academy was trying to like pump out more content there, which is awesome and amazing. So yeah, I think that's exciting. The second part of the year, especially, and also with Motivational Mentors, we're launching our own Patreon.
Okay.
So me and Arsenio are doing things there. Hopefully, we'll be putting a book together as well with the first 50 guests, and then we're going to be doing it in like batches of 50, so to speak. You know, in our main lessons that we've learned from each 50 guests over the coming weeks and months, and that. So yeah, those are some things I'm really excited about, and just continuing to help people to ignite those passions within inside of them, and make their ideas happen. That's what I'm focusing on right now. And I suppose, just on that, I actually was working with a person last year who was like, Luke, I don't have a passion. And I'm like, well, you don't have a passion, we just need to ignite them. So I kind of want to, kind of put that out there. If any of your listeners are like, thinking and feeling that actually I don't have a purpose and I don't have a passion, I'm just going to go and get a 9 to 5 or just be part of the system and just, could go down that route, that actually we all do have a purpose and we all do have a passion. And again, a part of the self-discovery process is that, it is pursuing that and finding out what that is. And I mean, you only do that through taking action in that direction, by getting curious about different paths and everything, really. So yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say if you are that person and you end up heading towards the 9 to 5, I also want to make sure everybody knows that that's perfectly okay as well. Not entrepreneurship and all this stuff isn't meant for every single person in the world. So you can absolutely find your gift and your passion through a 9 to 5, I think. And I just want to say that.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you say, entrepreneurship may not be for everyone. I suppose kind of where I was going with that is if people feel like actually, I don't have a purpose or a passion, so I'm just going to go and work at McDonald's or somewhere, your passion could be, I don't know, marketing, or your passion could be art, but you don't want to step out and be that entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's fine. Go and work for, like, I don't know, a huge company like VaynerMedia or another media company, or a smaller one in your local town, and make 40K a year instead of I don't know, 200K a year running your own business, and be super happy. So yeah, I think when I mention that, it's about people believing that they don't, so they go and they get a small time job that they're just going to complain about.
Have ceiling.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But they are going to go and get that job that they're just going to complain about because that limiting belief, right? That they don't have a purpose or a passion. So yeah, completely agree with you. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. And it's about finding your happiness and your passion and your purpose in whatever that is. And yeah.
Absolutely. And so I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
And this is going to go a little bit different from what we've been talking about, but it's something that I'm really getting into, and I want to get your perspective on this. And because I'm all about labels, and no label defines me. So the question is, when you think about the definition of what it means to be a man, what comes up for you?
Great question. And it's quite a deep question. I don't think I've ever really thought about it before, but I think my initial kind of response to that would probably be being strong, you know, and I think that's where a lot of, like, especially for men, actual like mental health challenges could come from, because then they don't want to talk about their thoughts or their feelings, which is super, super important, you know. So actually the word strong did come first to mind. And so yeah, I mean, that's definitely interesting, man. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think even just using the word strong is an interesting thing, because it can be, I think we relate to it being that physical strength, but
Definitely. 100%, man.
strong can be a adjective that describes mentally, spiritually,
1,000%.
but
Yeah.
I think that as a society we get stuck in the physical realm all the time. And you said emotions as well. I think we can be emotionally strong. We're just not taught to
Yeah.
to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks so much for sharing. That's some great insight there. And the final thing that I want to ask before that, how can people who are watching and listening connect with you?
Yeah, so they can follow me on Instagram. So my handle is @RealLukeBurrows. That's @RealLukeBurrows. And if they want to learn more about Grow Together, they can go to growtogethernetwork.com.
Okay, and I'll make sure and drop all that in the
Awesome.
comments and the show notes for sure.
Thanks, man.
And so the only other question I've got for you is, what does No Label Defines Me mean to you?
Oh, I knew that was coming. No label defines me. What does that mean to me? I think it means that no matter what other people kind of say about you, or what other people, you know, the labels they put on you, none of them actually matter. All that matters is your internal kind of like being, if that makes sense, and how you see your own self. And yeah, so no label that anyone, or, you know, any group or anyone puts on you, it doesn't matter. It's just how you see yourself.
All right. It's all about how we see ourselves. And with that, is there anything you would like to leave the audience with before we close out today?
I would probably just echo some of the things that I mentioned in the podcast, you know, that we all do have purpose, and we all do have a passion, and we all can just, you know, live our best life in that. And it's about going through that self-discovery process to find what that means to us, and to start to asking those deeper questions, to find those answers, really. And I think how people start that is just by getting curious, right? I speak about curiosity sometimes, and so important. Just about getting curious and moving in that direction.
So stay curious, my friends.
Absolutely.
And if you found any part of this interview, you connected to it in any way, or you know somebody who needs to hear this message, make sure and share it with them. Share it out with your fans. Share it with your community. Hit Luke and myself up. Let me know what you thought of the episode. And as you know, if you're watching this, you're up to big things. And when you're up to big things, you must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit. And you can catch us again next Friday for an episode of No Label Live.